practices. Once you start doing that, it's a slippery slope. And that's how wonderful people, not many could retain their integrity, only some sustained that. Eventually, they all became part of a vicious cycle. So there's an electoral system issue. It's not merely a question of money for politics in India. And I believe that must be addressed. And one way to do it is very simply some form of proportional representation. And our constitution makers were very wise. In fact, Dr. Ambedkar and his colleagues understood this need, and therefore they worded the constitution in such a manner that there can be multi-member constituencies with parties list system feasible in India. But of course, you have to have certain checks in India, because we are such a diverse society. If each caste forms a political party, that's not in the country's interest. So have a reasonable threshold, so that unless you aggregate several social groups, you cannot become a viable political party. The detailing can be done, but the political parties must understand this imperative. And particularly the two national parties, Congress and BJP, major national parties, they are getting wiped out in many states. Once you fall below a threshold, you get wiped out. And then you have to either forge an alliance with a smaller local party to become viable in Delhi, or you don't forge an alliance to be viable politically. If you want to be viable in Delhi and forge an alliance, you are wiped out from most of the political map of the state, because if you don't contest, you don't exist. If you don't form an alliance, in Delhi you are of no consequence, and therefore your power is elusive. So it's a Hobson's choice for them. It is in their interest. The parties need it, and yet we are so short-sighted, we are so consumed by day-to-day concerns of power, we don't see what is in our best interest as political parties and as a country.
So in fact, one is improving the way the political parties function by way of making sure that their finances are raised in a manner that is totally transparent. At the same time, people can contribute, so that people will just become stakeholders in political process. Not just they are giving money, but they are actually becoming then shareholders of that, stakeholders of that, and they would like to ask questions, and this will be another thing. But at the same time, the other issue that always comes to mind is that politicians have to now do so many demanding things in life. Like you are a professional doctor, then you were in civil service, so you have acquired a lot of expertise and knowledge about so many things. Do you think we really need to have a process of political training for some of these candidates as well as those who get elected? Because there is no such system in India wherein actually, I don't know if all political parties, but maybe barring few, or maybe just exceptionally one or two, no political party has a system of training people to be competent enough to run the country, to have the knowledge of governance, which is so critical to actually be successful.
It's obviously vital that people are well equipped to deal with the functions of state. After all, to run in a small company or office, it requires a great deal of expertise and understanding. To run a whole enterprise called government, and in a diverse country like India, it's amazing that even in civil service, let alone in politics, we think that anybody could be health secretary today, education secretary tomorrow, economic affairs secretary day after tomorrow. Only in India it happens. Nowhere in the world have I seen a situation where you could be a bank chief executive. I was one at one time, without knowing anything about banking. Somehow the bank survived me. I don't know how. It's a miracle. Or I could be health secretary, or I could be a home secretary. And in politics it's even worse. But at the same time, a formal training is not really feasible. You can't really prescribe a qualification. Well, while some kind of a formal education in government would certainly help, I don't think that really is the answer. So I can see 2 or 3 ways of doing it. One, every party must have think tanks within the party, and I think there can be state funding for a think tank function. And we could devise a mechanism.
We have in Germany. I mean, each political party has a political foundation.
And even in Britain and other countries now, they're looking at parties' internal think tanks and how to fund them. A secretariat is created for each political party, and that's funded, and so on and so forth. 2, some kind of a shadow minister system in our kind of a system, in our kind of a parliamentary executive system with the British Westminster model. The shadow system again trains people. And 3, internal training within the party. Each party, I believe, should have some kind of a training institute. We have it. I'm proud to say ours is the youngest and the smallest and weakest in terms of money, etc. party, and yet we have actually a training mechanism.
Your own party has a training mechanism?
Our own party has a true training institutes. We legitimately train. I'm not saying it's perfect training, but serious effort is made. And if we can do it, why can't others do it?
The party in infancy has decided to invest in that type of capitalism.
And 4, if the choice of candidates itself is through a rigorous democratic process, some form of primary election. Look at the way Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, that debate has revitalized American democracy, and many millions of young people are brought into the fold of electoral politics. I mean, the people who would shun it and who would simply reject it, unlike in the 60s, they are now excited. Because the primary elections themselves have become such a powerful catalyst. It engages society, unless the people are of great quality, they would not become representatives tomorrow, they would not become candidates for whatever elective office you want. It raises issues, and therefore, doesn't matter who gets elected, but the right kind of platform is built. We have to do that. And here, frankly, how are the candidates chosen? We all know that. So these are the means of training. I don't know if there's a formal training that would really help.
But just to make people more competent to govern.
No question.
But failure of governance, in fact, is so evident now that about more than 160 districts are getting Naxalite infected. Your home state actually
is one of the
very unfortunately very badly affected. So tell me, is it something, the expression of Naxalism, is it a failure of political process? Because we see normally is when people actually vote a political party out every election, hoping that somebody else will come in and do a better job. But when everybody is now tried and tested and everybody has failed, is there now turning to Naxalism? Is this something which is like a serious alarm bell for the political system?
It's a great question. The Prime Minister is talking about this being the greatest challenge facing the country and its unity. In some ways it is. But I think it's not merely a challenge to be addressed by the traditional methods. Of course, when the constitutional order is sought to be overthrown by the force of arms, the state must do everything possible and necessary to suppress it. There's no question, within the bounds of the constitutional law. But that's a non-starter. Saying that and then leaving it at that doesn't solve the problem. The real issue, as I said, is twofold. One is the political parties, in a large measure, have become merely machines to get into power. Power without purpose. And Mahatma Gandhi said quite rightly, politics without principle and power without purpose are the great sins. And today, most political parties in India, and I'm making this accusation with all seriousness and with humility, because I recognize the value and centrality of political parties, I respect them, and yet willy-nilly, they have become sinners. They are practicing power without purpose. And therefore, once elections are over, between the elections, it's all about what we call in Hyderabad Pairavi, influence peddling. It's about raking in money through contracts and tenders, patronage. It's about transfers of officials in states and therefore getting money. Maharashtra is well known for that, Andhra Pradesh is well known for that.
That I give you a power to rule, now give me money.
Absolutely. Then police interference. There is no crime which is registered without some political interference, and there's no evidence which is taken unless the politician says go ahead kind of thing. It's almost as bad in many states of the country. So that has become central. Otherwise, engaging people in a dialogue, looking at issues really that matter, and creating a mechanism by which people participate and outcomes are really there. It's not seen as part of politics, except an occasional band. If the party of a different persuasion is in power, just embarrass them and make life miserable for them by rasta rokas and bands every other day. That's the only political engagement. The second part of it is, there is such grave injustice of two kinds. One is deprivation, education, healthcare, empowerment. The second is actual negation of rights. I challenge anybody in this country. Go to a police station, Sureshji, even you in Mumbai city, with some kind of a camouflage, because many people may recognize you in Mumbai city. Go to a police station and try and get an FIR registered. Try and get a simple right enforced in a public office. The kind of injustice, the agony, the humiliation, the indignity most ordinary citizens suffer is unbelievable and unacceptable in a civilized democracy. So if 1 out of 1,000 of these souls get very rattled and therefore become violent, however irrational it is, it's no surprise. Actually, it is a great surprise to me that the violence is so little. Because our society has so many internal strengths. Our families are very strong, and there are social restraints, therefore we don't really go beyond a point, particularly in rural societies and so on and so forth. But there are all conditions for violent eruption. The real answer lies in setting our house in order in terms of politics and governance.
In fact, you just mentioned about, quoted Mahatma Gandhi saying that power without purpose is harmful. You seems to have a purpose. When do you think you will be able to get that power that is really required to attend this?
Suresh, I don't think it's important for an individual to get power, or a group of individuals either. I think it's a process of transition. I actually believe even today the vast majority of Indians wants this. It's a very peculiar paradigm. People talk about, but vote is bought, crores of rupees are spent, and gundas are there in politics. All these are true, up to a point. The reality is, no matter how much money you spend, that does not guarantee victory in elections. If that is true, if a mere expenditure on muscle power guarantees victory, no ruling party in India would lose power ever. Whereas the truth is, most of the time, the ruling parties and ruling functionaries are losing power. We have become a totally anti-establishmentarian political system. Therefore, while this functionality is there, at a broader level, people are very, very deeply resentful of what is happening. There's a lot of anger. But because each time they're going from frying pan to the fire, there is no faith in the system. That is the problem. All you have to do now is to make the majority realize, and particularly those who are not vulnerable to short-term inducements like money and liquor, etc. And the majority, luckily, because of economic growth and greater literacy, the majority is not really influenced by those things. If they start engaging themselves in politics, everything will change. I believe 3 groups are required: the middle class, the media, and the true elites who can form public opinion, who can mobilize people, and who can lead from whatever sector you come. Democratic and peaceful transformation takes place in societies only when these 3 forge an alliance. You may have ideological differences. On policies, you may differ with me. But on basics of rule of law, on empowerment, on decentralization, on fighting corruption, on political parties becoming accountable, nobody can dispute. It's like motherhood and apple pie. If even on those issues you don't
universal values, really.
Exactly. If even on those issues you don't have a sense of purpose and don't work together collectively and make it happen, the middle class, the media, and the elites, then that society is in danger. And I believe we have a majority in this country which wants change, but we don't have a coalition of the middle class, media, and the elites yet. I believe it's going to happen much faster than most people realize. And after all, if you remember 20 years ago, who would have believed that the Berlin Wall would collapse? We all lived through that. When, as younger men, I regard you still a young man, and I regard myself to still a young man, though I think we are now middle-aged really. But 20 years ago, in front of our very eyes, something happened which none of us dreamed would happen during our lifetime. So I think there is this cultivated helplessness, and there is a feeling that nothing will happen, which is nonsensical. Great change is taking place in the country and in the world. Even in the last 10 years, some very big changes have taken place, even politically. And we are pretty close, tantalizingly close to fundamental change in India. We just have to understand what are the big changes required and work for them, instead of merely asking for a few slogans. So
you are really very confident about this change that will come. Are you getting a good membership for your party which actually represents and reflects this type of changing trend?
We have about 500,000 membership.
500,000?
I can say, which is nothing compared to the other parties' claims at least. But I can tell you categorically, we are the only party which, when it simply establishes a small little kiosk or a tent, hundreds of people queue up to join as members. I mean, we don't really have to canvass. That means there is that. But it doesn't mean that all the members automatically are participating. They are saying, look, we're doing a nice thing, I pay my membership fee and I join. Nothing much is happening beyond that. But still, that's a sign that people want this to happen. And what's particularly striking is about 70 to 75% of the membership is young people in their 20s and early 30s. And even when we want candidates for elective office, we're getting many young people who are actually coming to the fore and women coming to the fore. And the educated for the first time are taking serious interest in saying, the middle class is saying, let's change it now. Now, that is different from actually translating that into political outcomes. There is a huge reservoir there which wants change. Our task is to convert that into a powerful political force for change for the better. And I believe we are in the anvil of that. We are pretty close to that. It will happen soon.
And this is something which is, suppose somebody wants to join the party, how does he go about? I mean, how do you actually get to enroll the membership?
There is a website, loksattaparty.org, wherever you are in the country or in the world. Loksattaparty.com or whatever, Loksattaparty, anything will come there. And you simply have to fill in a form. Except people known for their criminality or corruption, anybody can become a member. And every leadership position at every level is only by election.
And is it all India basis?
It is a national party, but as you know, the legal definition of national party is number of votes and seats, etc. We are still not at the stage. But today, even if Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and Mr. Vajpayee, the tallest leaders in India from various formations, let us say, they come together, they cannot do much in a state where they respectively don't have any great influence as a party. So national is notional in India.
That's it.
Politically, there is no India left any longer. There is an aggregate of state or regional outcomes that is reflected in Lok Sabha. Therefore, while our aspirations and our goals are truly national, we don't want to divide society. We are completely opposed to caste and regional and religion identities becoming central to politics. They all have place in politics, but they can't be central to politics. But our field of operation for the time being has to be one state, and that state in politics, the choice is made for you. You can't really choose very often. For the time being is Andhra Pradesh, but our goals are India.
But that's your first step, actually, as your Mao Zedong had said that the first step will start the beginning of a long march. So I hope that really long march succeeds. And this is something, Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, I don't know why your parents named you after great son of India, Jayaprakash Narayan. Maybe his unfulfilled task of bringing total evolution will be fulfilled by you and your party. And on that note, let me just bid goodbye to you and our viewers. This was Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan talking to us about his vision that he has really embarked upon to change India through political process without criticizing people, but actually bringing in change through the internalization of the issues that are really required to be changed. I'm very thankful to Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan for joining in this program. Please join us next week in a program, Top Shot, in which we talk to another distinguished personality on a life and issues concerning you and me. So please join us next week. This is Suresh Prabhu bidding you goodbye and good night. Thank you.